I don't know what it means either, but it looks cool.
All right, if you say so, brother, I'll take your word for it as the expert and cool on this one. We got Shari Ives, who came in first. She gets the gold. American Justice gets the silver. And Mama Gnome gets the bronze. Welcome to the show, each and every
They
one of
say
you.
second is best. First is worst. Second is the best.
Or take the passenger pigeon. Once upon a midnight dreary, the passenger pigeon flew across Illinois for 4 days. It blotted out the sun with the size of its flock for 4 days. There are stories written. I think one of the better ones, if I remember right, it's named "The Day the Sun Didn't Shine."
Mm.
It was a 4 day passenger pigeon excursion traveling from one side of the Mississippi to the other. So you could just walk up, throw nets on them, and get $20 for squab. Uh, the biomass in a passenger pigeon flock would be equivalent to two-thirds of the cows that we currently have, a single flock. And there were at least 9 at any given point in time. And most of
Mm.
them were on the order of a couple of billion. Uh, billion. Blot out the sun because they're moving, they're traveling. They would land on buildings and collapse them. There were so many of them. Their poop would cover everything, like everything. Can you imagine it? Now, I want you to consider what the elimination of the passenger pigeon meant to the prairie of the West. Without the passenger pigeons eating the seeds and spreading them in such copious amounts of fertilizer, some of the seeds didn't germinate properly because they're supposed to be eaten by a bird and then spread. Also, another feature of the bison and the passenger pigeon are a resemblance to invasive species. You don't usually come across vast hordes of a single type of animal. That's not a natural environment typically. Usually you have a nice blend of different types of herbivores taking up those niches. But in North America, we only had the great bison. We had the great bison, the Rocky Mountain bison, and the eastern woodland bison. And that's it. That was it for large herbivores eating shit out of the ground. We had deer, we had a few like elk, moose, and a couple other things, but they didn't really branch out into the plains all that much. I mean, I guess your bighorn sheep and whatnot may have. But anyway, you get my point. My point is, I cannot see, after having looked into the number of these animals, the sheer biomass that they represented, how far we could take factory farming before we actually tell. Because even counting the people that are walking around in North America, we still haven't matched the biomass of a single bison herd. There was a bunch of them, and they're freaking huge. But it just seems a little ironic to me that you want to go after the food source while saying we need more food.
Yes, but we have something that exists today that did not exist back then.
SJWs? Snowflake.
Uh, I know. I'm talking about the bill you introduced the show with the banning of certain meats or certain growth or whatever you said. That whole thing ties into global warming, and that whole
Mhm,
thing
mhm.
is a ploy to make money. It's a fear mongering tactic. It has absolutely
Absolutely.
nothing to do with reality. It's the production of carbon dioxide. Let me reach back to my grade school years and see if I can think of anything that might eat carbon dioxide. Trees eat carbon dioxide and turned it into oxygen.
And into trees
So if we have an abundance of carbon dioxide. That's a good thing. Plant more trees.
or hemp instead of replanting the various lodgepole pine forest out west with, if she wants to do it with industrial grade hemp.
Hey, if it's green, it'll eat carbon dioxide.
Her argument was right. It'll eat carbon dioxide. You can harvest it 3 times a year. It's growing invasively in its natural environment, and
Fantastic. That I
exactly.
don't have any problem with that. What I have a problem with is people using that knowledge We got too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to scare people when that's the actual function of the earth. That's what it's supposed to do.
So you don't think there's any any veracity to the burning of fossil fuels being a negative impact?
I don't think we could hurt this planet if we tried to.
Okay,
I
I
think
can
it
see
would
that.
spit us out and start over if it wanted to
Shrug us off like a surface nuisance.
in a heartbeat. This
Took a boat
planet
towards
is way
Charlie.
bigger than it seems.
Right.
I've walked a portion of it. I can tell you for sure it's bigger than you think it is.
Takes me 8 hours to get out of Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. And you head up to the Panhandle, don't you?
No.
You naughty, naughty. North American bison has all the earmarks of an invasive species. And I have a theory where it may have come from. In the Rocky Mountains, there is a smaller, less aggressive, less invasive type of bison called a Rocky Mountain bison. And they're found on little islands all up the coast through or used to be found on little islands all up down the coast from California and Washington and Oregon and all up through there. But they were also isolated in pockets up in the mountains. And I think sometime about 20,000, 30,000 years ago, a handful of these Rocky Mountain bison made it out into what was at the time mastodon steppe land, right? And the bison outcompeted the mastodon for just space because when on the East Coast, we found herds of bison in the forest. They weren't enormous. We killed a few and ate them. But when we hit the Great Plains, there were times when the bison would pass for days. You just had to stay inside and wait for them to go. They would just trample down any fencing, any walls, anything that you put up out there would just get stamped flat by the bison. And it wasn't a malicious thing. They just didn't notice it on their way through. They plowed it under with everything else. And that's an amazing volume of biomass.
Hard
And
to
today,
believe we hunted them to
yeah,
extinction, isn't it?
damn near it, very near it. And there may be subspecies we did hunt to extinction, right? So, I mean, there's no way to know how many species of bison we're here to start with. When it comes to the comparison between a Cape buffalo and a North American bison, the North American bison has the Cape buffalo by about half a ton, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are heavy, heavy, beastie beasts. Whereas the Cape buffalo is just raw dog mean and aggressive.
Yes,
They
but they're delicious. I said they're delicious.
okay, sure, but more people get killed hunting Cape buffalo than lions because a Cape buffalo has a little bit more intelligence than your average herbivore.
Yeah.
Cape buffalo gets shot. He runs off into a thicket over there somewhere and stands there. He gets down on his front knees and ducks. And the hunter has to drive up in towards the thicket as close as he can get. He has to get out of his truck and go look for that buffalo. And when he finds that buffalo, what he finds is a slightly wounded animal that murders his face.
Yeah, but
He goes,
imagine what it was like when you hunted that thing with a sharpened stick.
no, negative,
Truck.
just
No gun.
no, chemical shed. I am the alpha. I am the dominant predator in this situation. And I'm not getting out the truck either. I'm going to run that son of a bitch over.
And trying to gig it with a spear.
Giggity.
I bet those hunters got their asses handed to them more than once.
Well, you know what they found when they looked at the skeletons of Neanderthals? They look like bronco riders, like people who like rodeo riders. They look like rodeo clowns. The types of injuries they had, rodeo clowns,
That doesn't surprise me at all because they had to do everything physical.
right? So the idea being that apparently they got a big stick. All right, so I found this one like yesterday. Home Cuz has 593 subscribers, and I want you to check out the quality of this man's work. It is absolutely stunning. But check this dude out. Go sub to it.
While there seems to be at least one good story about species extinction, we ask the question, are we humans eating ourselves into a corner? Canadian researcher Lenore Newman has identified several examples of humans historically mismanaging culinary species into an irreversible eradication. However, one recently discovered lost group gives us hope. The passenger pigeon. The traditional French dish of tortilla enjoyed by Canadians is really a sad reminder of a disappeared bird.
Story that a 9-year-old kid in, I think it was Illinois, could make 15 cents a day by gathering the dead pigeons, specifically passenger pigeons, from local cities. And that what was killing the pigeons were the horn blasts from the trains. So every
Uh-huh.
time they blast the horn, pigeons have a heart attack, fall out the sky, and kids run out, pick up all the pigeons and skin them and take them and put them in the big barrel over there where they render them down and ship them to Paris for meals.
Huh.
Yeah. Passenger pigeon is another one of those species that seems to represent a high likelihood of having been an invasive species in North America pre-Columbian.
I think it's their own fault.
Passenger pigeon?
Yep. I think it's the pigeons. I think it's their own fault. They're just too delicious.
They are
Quail,
too delicious.
never mentioned in the Bible. Have you ever eaten a quail? They're kind of rubbery. They're not very good. They'll fill you up all right, but they're not delicious.
I don't know. My pops really, really likes quail, brother. Like a lot.
Has he ever eaten a carrier pigeon?
Probably not.
I rest my case.
All right. You got me. I surrender.
Once numbering in the billions, it only took a few hundred professional hunters to seal the doom of the passenger pigeon, aided.
That's not passenger pigeons, folks. That is a stack of bison skulls.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember there's this story I read back in the day. It was about this Texas or Oklahoma town somewhere up in that area in the plains had problems with their cattle being damaged by the bison skulls laying out in the prairie. And so they started a lotto for a rifle. I think it was a 41 caliber revolving rifle. To everyone who comes in would get with a bison skull would get a lotto ticket, and you win the rifle on the drawing. And they brought in something like 122,000 bison skulls the first year, and they didn't bother counting it after that. So they did it for like 3 or 4 years. And the story goes, I can't remember what newspaper it was in, but the story goes that there was a pyramid of bison skulls the size of the Great Pyramid. Now, that's during the day of yellow journalism, and it might be a bit exaggerated. But still, looking at this, I might be inclined to believe it.
I'd say so.
I mean, that thing is huge.
Imagine that place not too far from where you're at, where there is a pyramid of bison skulls, and it's not weird to them.
I know they would be gathered up for ivory at this point.
Sure.
And horn, which is used in like bows and all kinds of other stuff, glue.
But in your day-to-day life, you wouldn't think that kind of a place exists, but it does.
No, they do. And to this day, you regularly dig up bison skulls in the process of any type of major construction that happens west of the Mississippi. It's so common you don't even call nobody about it.
Right. Big world.
Agreed. All right, we're going to let this one run. I really like his style.
The ancient historian Pliny recorded that during his lifetime, only one solitary stork was found. It was picked and conveyed to the Emperor Nero as a rare novelty.
Men of all ages have always been assholes. Oh, look, it's the only one of its kind. I'm going to take it to the emperor for the power of Rome.